Hey guys, it's Sean, and today we're going to be looking at the Vmax spiral ported CNC throttle body, and we're going to be going over how it helps the car's performance, and we're also going to be installing it on my 2011 Camaro SS, so let's get to work. Hey guys, now we're in the engine bay ready to install the ported throttle body. What we're going to need is a 5/16 nut driver, and that's going to be to take the hose clamps off of the intake tube, and we're also going to need a 10mm socket in order to take the actual throttle body off. Alright, first thing we need to do here is take the oil cap off so we can remove the engine cover. You just gotta put the oil cap somewhere so it won't fall on the ground or anything. And you lift up on the front end of the engine cover and it pulls right out. Okay, then we gotta replace the oil cap, that way nothing falls into the oil while you're working in the engine bay. And then the next step would be taking off the intake tube, which requires to take off 2 hose clamps and then popping this right here off. So to take off the 2 hose clamps, you gotta take your nut driver and loosen up the hose clamps just enough so you can actually pop it off. You probably don't want to take it completely apart. And then you have to pull the intake tube off of the throttle body. And then off of the air intake. And just set that aside. I'm going to put it on top of the intake manifold. Then you have access to the actual throttle body. Alright, and the next step after you get the intake tube off would be to take off the plug for the throttle body that actually controls the throttle body itself. And it's hidden right back here, and all you have to do to take it out is simply just pull it out and just kind of hang it down over here and it will stay where it is. And then you got it. Then you gotta start taking this off, which requires 4 bolts, which is just using the 10mm socket to take it off. And they shouldn't be hard to break because they are not torqued down hard, and that's the way it comes from the factory. And we're going to skip to when we have all 4 off. And now we got the throttle body off, and you just pull it away. And you put all the bolts in one spot. And you can see here you have a seal built into the intake manifold. So when you buy these, they don't come with a seal, and you don't have to replace the seal. So here we have the old throttle body and the new ported throttle body. And we're going to take a look on why the new throttle body, the ported ones, give out more performance benefits than the OEM. So here we have the OEM throttle body, and you have this ridge here which restricts the amount of airflow that can come through when this valve is open. And then from this front lip to that ridge, it is very poorly machined, which is going to cause a lot of turbulence in the air when it's trying to come in to the motor, which then you lose performance there. And if you look in here, this is nicely machined, but it's still not great. When you compare that to the Vmax, that ridge is essentially gone. There's very little of a ridge there. And it's machined the same way throughout the entire throttle body, even behind the blade. And if you look closely in this machining, you can see it's almost on an angle and it's in a spiral pattern opposed to straight through and completely smooth. And the spiral pattern reduces the amount of turbulence of air when it's coming through the throttle body, which allows a much smoother transition into the motor, which then yields more power and better throttle response. The power gains on these are nominal, but you get it more for the throttle response, and the spiral cut gives you a better throttle response feel than a normal ported throttle body. So I personally got mine from JDP Motorsports, and they were great to deal with. And I went the route of getting a used throttle body. So essentially what they do is they offer a brand new one that they buy a throttle body from GM, and then they'll CNC machine it out for you and port it. Or you could do what I did, and somebody else bought a ported throttle body before me, and they sent in the old OEM throttle body off of their car. And by doing that, it reduces the cost because they don't have to go out and source a new throttle body and then machine it. They're just machining a used one. And the throttle bodies have next to no wear. So essentially, you get this, you put it on your car, and you send them back your old one, and you get a credit back. So it becomes $150 opposed to the $350 for all new one. And it's the same quality, it's the same piece, it just might have some miles on it, and throttle bodies aren't a piece that wear that much. Okay, so now we're going to get the throttle body back, the new throttle body, onto the intake manifold. So to do that, you just put it exactly where the old one was, and you use the same bolts that you used to put, or take off the old one, and you start threading them in. And we'll come back when this is all threaded on. Okay, so once you get them finger tight, you just kind of want to come in and torque them down a little bit. Just make sure they're not going anywhere. You don't want to over torque them. It just needs to be lightly torqued. And you got to make sure they all are on there nicely. And with this product, you need no tuning whatsoever. It uses the same stock throttle body controller, so it's very seamless, and it's one of the best bang for your buck modifications you can do for this car. So after you get those all torqued on, you want to take your wire that we took out before and simply plug it right back into the new throttle body, just as it was on the old one. You want to push it, make sure it's nice and tight on there. That way you're getting the communication between your gas pedal and the throttle body. And then you want to take the intake tube and you want to get it back on to the throttle body. And also back on to the intake box. Alright, so once you get that back on the throttle body and back on the air box, you want to make sure you replace this, push it back into the intake tube, make sure it clicks, and then you want to go ahead and tighten up the hose clamps. That way you're not losing any air through the air box to the throttle body. You want to make sure these are real tight, that way once again you have no leaks from the air box to the throttle body. Just give it a quick wiggle, make sure it doesn't move. Then you want to pull your oil cap back off and take your engine cover that you took off in the beginning, and there are prongs on the engine cover here, and they go and sit back in pivot points in the back of the motor. And you want to put a little bit of pressure down on the front of it. You want to make sure you're not hitting the dipstick, make sure you have room there. And you should feel it click on where the oil goes in. Should be pretty secure. Go ahead and replace your oil cap. And then your throttle body's all set up and ready to go. Okay, so altogether this install takes about 15-20 minutes at most to pull off tubing and everything off the old throttle body and switch out the throttle body and put everything back on. And it's a relatively cheap modification as far as these cars go, because an exhaust can be upwards of $1,500 and this is $150. And it's a good bang for your buck given the performance you get for it at the price point. And let's go start it up.